My wife said I was controlling because I didn't like her clubbing with single friends. I said okay, then I made her understand what boundaries really meant. It started with a jacket, not mine. Definitely not mine, because I don't wear designer leather that costs more than my monthly truck payment, but there it was, draped over our hallway chair like it owned the place, reeking of cologne that smelled like it came from a bottle shaped like a naked woman. "Renee," I called from the kitchen, holding my morning coffee like a shield. "Whose jacket is this?" She appeared in the doorway, still in her silk robe, hair perfectly messy in that way that takes 45 minutes to achieve. My wife of 8 years, Renee Fowler, marketing manager extraordinaire, and current pain in my ass. "Oh, that?" She didn't even look at it. "Nina borrowed it from some guy at the club. Asked me to return it." Nina. Her best friend and partner in crime. If Nina jumped off a bridge, Renee would ask about the water temperature and whether there were any cute lifeguards. I picked up the jacket. Size large. Expensive. And unless Nina had started dating giants, this story had more holes than my favorite fishing net. "Since when does Nina wear men's jackets?" Renee's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "God, Lucas, you're so suspicious." It was cold. She grabbed the first thing she could find. You know how she is. Yeah, I knew how Nina was. I also knew how my wife was lately. Distant. Secretive. Always on her phone. Always going out with the girls. Always treating me like I was some kind of prison warden instead of the guy who'd been making her coffee every morning for nearly a decade. "Right," I said, hanging the jacket back up. "Of course." But I memorized the cologne smell, and I noticed the lipstick smudge on the collar, coral pink, Renee's exact shade. The thing about being married to someone for 8 years is you develop a sixth sense about their bullshit, and my bullshit detector was screaming like a smoke alarm. I work in IT for a mid-sized company here in Portland, Maine. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps me sharp with technology. Renee works at a trendy marketing agency downtown, all exposed brick and craft coffee, where everyone under 30 thinks they're changing the world one Instagram campaign at a time. We used to be happy. Or at least I thought we were. We'd spend weekends hiking, trying new restaurants, binge-watching Netflix shows, and arguing about the endings. But somewhere in the last 6 months, Renee had discovered the nightlife scene. Specifically, a place called Velvet, downtown, where the drinks cost $18 and the music makes your teeth hurt. "I'm going out with Nina tonight," she announced, already heading back to the bedroom. "Don't wait up." "Again?" She stopped, turned, fixed me with that look I'd been seeing a lot lately. Like I was a bug she'd found in her salad. "Is that a problem, Lucas?" "It's Tuesday." So you went out Saturday and Thursday and the Tuesday before that." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you keeping track of my social life now?" "I'm keeping track of my wife disappearing 3 nights a week." "I'm not disappearing. I'm socializing. With friends. Like normal people do." "Normal people." Right. Because apparently I wasn't normal people anymore. "Look," she said, her voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. "I know you prefer staying home with your computer and your beer, but some of us need human interaction. I interact with humans. Oscar doesn't count. He's basically a trained gorilla." Oscar Martinez was my best friend since high school and worked as a bouncer at 3 different clubs, including Velvet. He was also the guy who'd been feeding the information about my wife's girls' nights out. "What time will you be home?" I asked. "I don't know. Late. Don't wait up." She said it again, like a mantra. Don't wait up. Don't ask questions. Don't be controlling. But I did wait up, until 3:17 a.m., when I heard the Uber pull into our driveway. I listened to her fumble with her keys, stumble through the front door, and bump into that damn jacket before tiptoeing to the bathroom. Through the thin walls, I heard her shower. At 3 in the morning. Washing off the night, washing off the cologne smell, washing off whatever she'd been doing while I sat home like an idiot, wondering when I'd become the enemy in my own marriage. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. Early meeting, according to the note on the coffee maker. But she'd forgotten to take the jacket. I examined it more carefully in the daylight. Italian leather, designer label I couldn't pronounce, and, tucked in the inside pocket, a business card for Velvet Nightclub with a handwritten note. "Thanks for last night. E.E. Not Nina. Not any of Renee's female friends. E. For someone who wore expensive jackets and left them in other men's houses. I photographed the card, the jacket, everything. Then I hung it back up exactly where I'd found it. If Renee wanted to play games, I could play games too. That evening, she came home from work looking guilty and distracted. Any word from Nina about that jacket? I asked casually. What jacket? The one in our hallway. The one she borrowed from some guy. Renee's face went through several expressions before settling on annoyed. Oh, that. Yeah, she'll pick it up soon. No rush. Though I have to say, this guy has expensive taste. Italian leather.
Must do pretty well for himself.
I wouldn't know. But she knew. I could see it in the way she avoided eye contact, the way she busied herself with unnecessary tasks, the way she kept checking her phone every 30 seconds. I'm going out again tonight, she announced. Nina's having a crisis. What kind of crisis? Relationship stuff you wouldn't understand. Right, because I'd never been in a relationship, never dealt with problems, never had to navigate the complex world of human emotions. Tell Nina I said hi, I said. Sure. But she wouldn't, because Nina wasn't going to be there. I knew this because I'd already texted Oscar, and Oscar had already confirmed that Tuesday nights at Velvet were industry night, when all the club promoters and VIP types showed up to network and show off. And I was willing to bet that someone whose name started with E would be there, wondering where his expensive jacket was. After Renee left, I sat in my living room, staring at that jacket like it was a poisonous snake. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of trust, compromise, and shared dreams. And it was all falling apart because my wife had discovered the thrill of lying to my face. My phone buzzed. Text from Oscar. She's here. Not with Mina. Nina's at home posting Instagram stories from her couch. Another text. She's with some slick guy in a suit. Looks like he's missing a jacket. And finally, sorry, man. I know this sucks. Yeah, it sucked. But it was about to suck a lot more for everyone involved. I walked to the hallway and picked up the jacket one more time. Tomorrow, I decided, I was going to return it to its owner personally and have a little chat about boundaries, respect, and what happens when you mess with the wrong husband. The game was just beginning. Oscar Martinez looked like he could bench press a Buick, but he had the emotional intelligence of a therapist and the observational skills of a detective, which made him perfect for what I needed. His name's Evan Locke, Oscar said, sliding into the booth across from me at Murphy's, our usual dive bar. 34, club promoter, thinks he's God's gift to women with daddy issues. I sipped my beer and tried to look casual, like we were discussing the weather instead of my wife's apparent affair. How long has this been going on? I started noticing them together about 6 weeks ago, always at the VIP section, always real cozy. She tells everyone she's there with Nina, but Nina's usually hammered at the regular bar, hitting on college kids. 6 weeks. While I'd been working late, fixing servers and troubleshooting network issues, my wife had been playing house with some club promoter named Evan. What's his story? Oscar pulled out his phone and showed me a Facebook profile. Evan Locke looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for douchebag club guy. Perfectly styled hair, expensive shirts unbuttoned, one button too many, posing with bottles of champagne and groups of women young enough to be carded twice. Rich kid from Connecticut. Parents own some import business. He came up here about 2 years ago, started promoting at Velvet and a couple other places. Drives a BMW, lives in one of those new condos downtown, acts like he invented nightlife. Criminal record? Nothing official, but there are rumors. Some stuff about drugs, maybe some financial issues down in Connecticut. Nothing proven. I studied the photos. In one of them, Evan was wearing the jacket currently hanging in my hallway. In another, he was at what looked like a company party, arm around a woman who definitely wasn't my wife. Player, apparently, was an understatement. Has he been asking about the jacket? Oscar grinned. Oh yeah. Came in Saturday night looking all frantic, asking everyone if they'd seen it. Apparently it's some limited edition thing that cost him $3,000. $3,000 for a jacket. Meanwhile, I drove a truck with 180,000 miles and bought my clothes at Target. I need to know more about him, I said. Where he lives, where he hangs out, what his deal is. Lucas, man, I know you're pissed, but be careful. This guy's got connections. Rich family, knows people in the city. You don't want to do something stupid. Stupid. Like trusting my wife. Like believing her lies. Like spending 8 years building a life with someone who threw it away for expensive jackets and VIP sections. I'm not going to do anything stupid, I said. I'm going to do something smart. The next day, I implemented phase 1 of my investigation. I installed a GPS tracker in Renee's car. Nothing illegal, since both our names were on the title, and set up notifications on my phone. I also activated the Find My Phone feature on our shared Apple account, which she'd forgotten existed. Then I waited. Renee came home from work Wednesday evening acting normal, or what passed for normal these days. She made dinner, we watched TV, she scrolled through her phone while I pretended to read. Domestic bliss, if you ignored the undercurrent of lies and betrayal. Quiet night tonight? I asked. Yeah, I'm tired. Long day. But at 9:30 her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and I saw her entire demeanor change. Suddenly she was alert, energized. Actually, Nina just texted. She's having another crisis. I should probably go over there. Want me to come? No! Too fast. Too sharp. I mean, it's girl stuff. You'd be bored. I'll risk it. Lucas. That tone again. The one that made me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting to spend time with my wife. I need some space to help my friend. Is that okay with you? Space. Right. She needed space to help her friend. Her friend, Evan, presumably. Of course, I said. Tell Nina I hope everything works out. She kissed my cheek, a quick, guilty peck, and headed upstairs to change. 20 minutes later, she was out the door in a dress I hadn't seen before and heels that made her 3 inches taller. I waited until her car was out of the driveway, then checked the GPS. She wasn't heading toward Nina's apartment. She was heading downtown, toward the trendy district where Velvet was located. But she didn't stop at Velvet. According to the tracker, she parked outside a high-rise condo building on Exchange Street, the same address Oscar had given me for Evan Locke. My wife was at another man's apartment, wearing a new dress and expensive heels, while I sat at home believing her lies about helping Nina. I could have driven down there. Could have confronted them. Could have made a scene that would have ended with police reports and divorce lawyers and everyone in town knowing my business. Instead, I opened my laptop and got to work. Evan Locke, it turned out, had a very active social media presence. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even TikTok. He posted constantly. Pictures of his food, his workouts, his nights out, his conquests. The man documented his life like he was running for office, but he was also careless with his privacy settings. His Instagram location services were turned on, his Facebook check-ins were public, and his Twitter was connected to his email account. Within an hour, I had his address, his phone number, his work schedule, and a pretty good idea of his daily routine. I also had something else. Photos from the past 6 weeks that told the story of his relationship with my wife. They were careful not to post pictures together, but they were both at the same places, at the same times wearing the same clothes I'd seen Renee leave the house in. The timeline was damning. Every night, Renee had claimed to be with Nina. Evan had posted from Velvet or some other club. Every crisis Nina was having corresponded with Evan's social media activity. They'd been together for 6 weeks, and they'd been lying about it the entire time. At 2:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a GPS notification. Renee's car was moving, heading home. I closed the laptop and pretended to be asleep. She crept into the bedroom at 2:45, reeking of cologne and sex. She showered again, her new routine, and slipped into bed beside me, probably thinking she'd gotten away with it. But I was done being the oblivious husband. I was done being controlled and manipulated and lied to. Renee wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that I was better at games than she thought. The next morning, I made coffee for both of us, just like always. I kissed her goodbye, just like always. I told her to have a good day at work, just like always. Then I called in sick, drove to Exchange Street, and parked across from Evan Locke's building. At 11:30 a.m., he emerged, tall, lean, perfectly styled hair, wearing sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He walked like he owned the sidewalk, like the world existed for his entertainment. He got into his BMW, license plate EVANLUX, because of course it was, and drove to a gym downtown. I followed at a distance, watching him work out through the floor-to-ceiling windows, noting his routine, his timing, his habits. After the gym, he went to a coffee shop, where he held court with other 20-something club types, all of them dressed like they were auditioning for a reality show. He was clearly the leader of this little group, the one everyone deferred to, the one who picked up the check and basked in the attention. At 2 p.m., he drove to Velvet for what looked like a business meeting. I parked across the street and watched him glad hand with suppliers and staff, playing the big shot, acting like he was running a Fortune 500 company instead of a nightclub. And at 4:30, he texted someone. Based on the timing and the way he smiled at his phone, I was pretty sure I knew who. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, my wife's GPS showed her leaving work early. Doctor's appointment, she'd probably told her boss. Or family emergency. Another lie to add to the collection. I drove home, arriving just as Renee was pulling into the driveway. "You're home early," she said, looking surprised and slightly panicked. "Slow day. Figured I'd surprise you." "How was the doctor?" "Doctor? Your appointment. Isn't that why you left work early?" I watched her face cycle through confusion, realization, and calculation before settling on irritation. I didn't have a doctor's appointment. I had errands to run. What kind of errands? Jesus, Lucas, what is this? 20 questions? I'm an adult. I can leave work early without filing a report with you. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. I'm just happy you're home. Want to grab dinner somewhere? Maybe that Italian place you like. She looked like I'd suggested we rob a bank. Tonight? I can't. I already made plans. With Nina? With Nina. Great. I'll call Oscar, see if he wants to hang out. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or guilt. Actually, she said quickly, maybe we should do dinner. Just the two of us. It's been a while. Too late. I'd already seen the panic. The calculation. The moment she realized that if I was with Oscar, and Oscar was at Velvet, I might see something I wasn't supposed to see. No, it's fine, I said. You help Nina with whatever crisis she's having this time. I'll find something to do. That evening, I did find something to do. I drove to Exchange Street, parked outside Evan's building, and waited. At 8:15, Renee's car pulled into the visitor parking section. She sat there for a moment, checking her makeup in the mirror, before getting out and walking into the building like she belonged there. I took pictures. Lots of pictures. Time-stamped, GPS-tagged, high-resolution pictures of my wife entering another man's apartment building while claiming to be helping her best friend. Then I drove home and waited for her to come back with another lie about Nina's problems. But this time, I was ready. This time, I had evidence. And this time, I was going to start fighting back. The jacket was still hanging in our hallway, waiting to be returned to its owner. And I was going to return it all right, just not the way Evan Locke was expecting. Friday night at Velvet was like a nature documentary about peacocks. Everyone preening, posturing, trying to prove they were the most important person in a room full of people pretending to be important. I didn't belong there, and everyone knew it. My jeans and button-down shirt screamed suburban dad, while everyone else looked like they'd stepped out of a music video. But Oscar had gotten me in, and that's all that mattered. He's in the VIP section, Oscar said, nodding toward a roped-off area where Evan Locke was holding court. Been there all night, buying drinks for everyone, acting like the king of the world. I could see him clearly from where we stood at the bar. He was everything I'd expected and worse. Handsome in that artificial way that comes from expensive grooming. Confident in that obnoxious way that comes from never facing real consequences. Surrounded by people who laughed too hard at his jokes and agreed with everything he said. Where's Renee? Bathroom. She's been here about an hour, hanging all over him like a cheap suit. My wife was here, in this overpriced meat market, playing the role of adoring girlfriend, while her actual husband sat at home watching Netflix. The husband who'd been making her coffee every morning for 8 years, who'd held her hair when she was sick, who'd co-signed the loan for her car and put her name on the deed to our house. I'm going to talk to him. Oscar grabbed my arm. Bad idea, man. Not here. Not with all these people around. And definitely not with Renee here. I'm not going to start a fight. I'm just going to introduce myself. Lucas. I'm going to return his jacket. I pulled the expensive leather jacket out of the bag I'd been carrying and headed toward the VIP section. The bouncer at the rope looked like he was going to stop me, but Oscar appeared behind me and nodded. Professional courtesy. Evan was in the middle of telling a story to his captive audience, gesturing with a glass of something that probably cost more than my hourly wage. He was describing some party in Miami, name-dropping celebrities I'd never heard of, painting himself as the center of the universe. "Excuse me," I said, stepping into the circle. "Are you Evan Locke?" The conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at me, and I felt like a nature documentary narrator, observing a pack of hyenas who'd just noticed a gazelle. Evan looked me up and down, taking in my off-the-rack clothes and working man's hands. "Yeah, I'm Evan. Do I know you?" "Not yet, but I think you know my wife." The temperature in the VIP section dropped about 20 degrees. Evan's friends suddenly found their drinks very interesting, and I heard someone whisper, "Oh shit. Your wife?" "Renee Fowler. Though I guess you might know her by her maiden name. Or maybe you don't bother with names." Evan's face went through several expressions before settling on a smirk that made me want to knock his teeth out. "I know a lot of people, man. You're going to have to be more specific. Blonde, about 5'6", works in marketing, has been leaving her jacket at your place." I held up the leather jacket, and Evan's eyes locked onto it immediately. His smirk faltered. "Actually," I continued, "I think this is your jacket. She brought it home by mistake. You know how it is when you're in a hurry to get undressed." The VIP section was dead silent now. Even the music seemed quieter, like the DJ had turned down the volume to hear what was happening. Evan stood up, slowly. He was taller than me, younger than me, and in much better shape. But I'd spent 8 years married to a woman who was currently cheating on me with this overgrown frat boy, and rage was a hell of a motivator. "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding," Evan said carefully. "No misunderstanding. Your jacket, your cologne, your business card in the pocket. Pretty straightforward, actually. Look, man, I don't know what your wife told you. She didn't tell me anything. She's been lying to me for 6 weeks, claiming she's helping her friend Nina with various crises. But Nina's usually here at the bar, drunk off her ass, while my wife is upstairs in your condo, helping you with your crisis." Evan's friends were starting to back away, sensing that this was about to get ugly. Smart move. "You want to take this outside?" Evan asked. "I want to take this wherever you're comfortable having it, because we're going to have it." That's when Renee appeared. She'd been coming back from the bathroom, probably touching up her makeup for her boyfriend, and walked right into her two worlds colliding. The look on her face was priceless. Pure, undiluted panic. "Lucas?" she said, like she couldn't believe her eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Returning some lost property. And meeting your friend." She looked back and forth between me and Evan, calculating damage, planning her next lie. I had to admire her composure. Most people would have crumbled, but Renee was already working on her story. "This is insane," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You followed me here? You're stalking me now? I'm returning a jacket that was left in my house by a man who's been sleeping with my wife. That's not... I never... 6 weeks, Renee. I know about all of it. The lies about Nina, the fake crises, the late-night visits to his condo. I know about the new dresses, the extra showers, the way you check your phone every 30 seconds. The VIP section was starting to attract attention from the rest of the club. People were pulling out phones, recording what was clearly about to become the most dramatic thing to happen at Velvet in months. Evan stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. "Look, I don't know what kind of problems you two are having, but this isn't the place." "You're right," I said. "The place for this conversation was 6 weeks ago, before you started screwing my wife. But since we missed that opportunity, here we are." "Lucas, stop," Renee hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself? I'm not the one who's been lying and cheating and playing house with some club promoter while my spouse sits at home like an idiot." Evan's smirk was back. "Maybe if you'd been paying more attention to your wife's needs, she wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." Wrong thing to say. I stepped closer to him, close enough to smell his expensive cologne, close enough to see the exact moment he realized that pushing a man whose wife was cheating on him might not be the smartest move. "You want to talk about needs?" I said quietly. "Let's talk about your need to sleep with married women. Let's talk about your need to play the big shot with daddy's money. Let's talk about your need to feel important by destroying other people's lives. I didn't destroy anything that wasn't already broken. You're right. My marriage was broken. But you know what? So is your jacket." I dropped the leather jacket on the floor and stepped on it, grinding the expensive Italian leather under my work boot. Then I picked up Evan's drink, something top shelf and overpriced, and poured it over the jacket. "Oops," I said. Accidents happen. Evan lunged forward, but Oscar was suddenly there, all 6'4" and 250 pounds of him, creating a wall between us. Gentlemen, Oscar said calmly, let's keep this civilized. Civilized? Evan snarled. This psycho just destroyed a $3,000 jacket. And you destroyed an 8-year marriage, I replied. I'd say we're even. Renee grabbed my arm. Lucas, we need to go. Now. We don't need to do anything. You made your choice. You chose him. You chose the lies. You chose the drama. Now you get to live with it. I looked around the VIP section, at all the faces staring at us, at all the phones recording our domestic disaster for social media posterity. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, I'd like you all to meet my wife, Renee, and her boyfriend, Evan. They've been having an affair for 6 weeks while I was at home being the loyal, trusting husband. Just thought you should know who you're partying with. The silence was deafening. Then someone in the back started clapping, and suddenly half the VIP section was applauding like I'd just given the performance of a lifetime. Renee's face was red with humiliation and rage. I hate you, she whispered. Good, I said. That makes 2 of us. I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at Evan, who was still staring at his ruined jacket. By the way, I said, she does that thing with her tongue to everyone. You're not special. And then I walked out of Velvet, through the crowd of people who were already posting about what they'd just witnessed, into the cool, Maine night air. Behind me, I could hear Renee and Evan arguing, their voices rising above the music. Their perfect little secret was blown, their VIP fantasy shattered, their relationship exposed for what it really was, a tawdry affair between 2 selfish people who deserved each other. I got in my truck and drove home to the house I'd shared with my wife for 8 years, the house that suddenly felt like a mausoleum for a marriage that was officially over. But for the first time in 6 weeks, I wasn't angry. I was something else entirely. I was planning. The video went viral by Saturday morning. Someone had posted it to TikTok with the caption, "Husband destroys cheating wife and her boyfriend at nightclub." And by the time I woke up, it had 50,000 views and climbing. My phone was buzzing with texts, calls, and social media notifications. Friends I hadn't heard from in years were reaching out, some offering support, others just wanting the gossip. My sister in California had seen it. My mother in Florida had seen it. Apparently, half the internet had seen my marriage implode in real time. Renee hadn't come home. I'd expected that. After the scene at Velvet, there was no way she was going to face me. At least not right away. She was probably at Evan's condo, planning her next move, figuring out how to spin this to make herself the victim. But she had to come home eventually. She lived here. Her clothes were here. Her car was here. Her life was here, or what was left of it. She showed up Sunday afternoon, looking like she hadn't slept. Her makeup was smudged, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing the same dress she'd worn to the club. The Walk of Shame, Suburban Edition. We need to talk, she said, standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was welcome in her own house. Do we? What you did Friday night was humiliating and cruel. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reading the comments on the viral video. Most of them were supportive, calling me a hero for exposing cheaters, praising me for handling it like a boss. A few were critical, saying I should have handled it privately, that I'd embarrassed myself as much as her. Humiliating and cruel, I repeated. Interesting choice of words. You made a scene. In public. In front of all those people. I returned a jacket. Everything else was just context. She came into the living room, moving carefully, like she was approaching a wild animal. Lucas, I know you're hurt. Hurt? No, Renee, I'm not hurt. Hurt is when you stub your toe, or your team loses the game. This is something else entirely. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. Sorry for what, exactly? For the affair. For lying to you. For getting caught. Ah. There it is. You're sorry for getting caught. She sat down on the couch, trying to look contrite. I'm sorry for all of it. The whole thing was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. A mistake is putting salt in your coffee instead of sugar. This was a choice. A series of choices, made over 6 weeks, every single day. You're right. You're absolutely right. But maybe we can work through this. Maybe we can go to counseling, try to rebuild. Rebuild what? Our marriage? Our trust? Our life together? Yes. I closed the laptop and looked at her. Really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago. But she was also a stranger, someone who could lie to my face every day for 6 weeks, someone who could sleep with another man and then come home and kiss me goodnight. Tell me about him, I said. What? Evan, tell me about your relationship with him. Lucas, I don't think... Tell me about him or get out of my house. She flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen. I met him at Velvet. He was charming. He made me feel different. Different how? Young. Exciting. Like I mattered. You didn't matter to me? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She struggled for words, and I realized she didn't have an answer. She'd blown up our marriage for a feeling she couldn't even articulate. He was everything you're not, she said finally. Spontaneous, adventurous, exciting. He made me feel alive. And I made you feel dead? You made me feel settled, comfortable, like we were roommates instead of lovers. I nodded. So you decided to fix that by sleeping with someone else instead of talking to your husband about it. I tried to talk to you, but every time I suggested we go out, try something new, you wanted to stay home and watch TV. So this is my fault? That's not what I'm saying. It sounds like that's exactly what you're saying. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face, makeup running. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm confused and scared, and I just want to fix this. You can't fix this, Renee. You can't unsleep with him. You can't unlie to me. You can't unhumiliate me in front of half the city. But we can try. No, we can't. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we'd planned to raise kids, grow old together, build a life. All of that was gone now, destroyed by her need to feel alive. I want you out, I said. Lucas, I want you out of this house, out of my life, out of my sight. You made your choice. You chose him over me. Excitement over stability. Lies over truth. So go be with him. Go be alive with him. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Go to Evan's. Go to Nina's. Go to a hotel. But don't stay here. She was sobbing now. Full body sobs that shook her entire frame. Please don't do this. Please don't throw away 8 years because of one mistake. One mistake? Renee, you've been sleeping with him for 6 weeks. You've lied to me every single day. You've made me look like a fool to everyone we know. That's not one mistake. That's a lifestyle choice. I'll end it with him. I'll never see him again. I'll do whatever you want. I want you to leave. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant she realized I was serious. That this wasn't a negotiation or a fight we could work through. This was the end. Fine, she said, her voice suddenly cold. Fine. But don't think you're innocent in this. Don't think you were the perfect husband. You were boring, Lucas. You were predictable and boring, and you made me feel like I was dying inside. And yet you stayed married to me for 8 years, because I thought you'd change. I thought you'd grow up, become more interesting, more ambitious. But you're exactly the same person you were when we got married. Same job, same hobbies, same boring life. You're right, I said. I am exactly the same person. I'm loyal, honest, and faithful. I'm the kind of person who keeps promises and honors commitments. I'm the kind of person who doesn't sleep around when things get difficult. You're the kind of person who gives up. No, Renee. I'm the kind of person who knows when something is over. She stood up, wiping her eyes, trying to salvage some dignity. I'll pack some things. I'll be back for the rest later. Take your time, but understand that when you walk out that door, we're done. No more chances, no more conversations, no more anything. We're done. She nodded and headed upstairs. I heard her moving around, opening drawers, packing clothes. An hour later, she came back down with 2 suitcases and a look of grim determination. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce, she said. You do that. She paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. For what it's worth, I did love you. Once. Once upon a time, I said. But this isn't a fairy tale, and you're not the princess. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, surrounded by the remnants of our life together. Photos on the walls, furniture we'd picked out together, memories embedded in every room. But I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was free, and I was ready to show Renee and Evan what happened when you messed with the wrong, boring, predictable husband. The real game was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Renee's world started falling apart in ways she never saw coming. It started with her job. Turns out, when you become internet famous for having an affair, and that video gets shared around your professional network, employers start asking uncomfortable questions about your judgment and character. They put me on administrative leave, she told me over the phone, her voice tight with panic. They said they need to evaluate my fit with company culture. I was in my garage, working on my truck, enjoying the first peaceful evening I'd had in months. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? Lucas, they're going to fire me. Because of what you did. What I did was return a jacket. What you did was have an affair and lie about it for 6 weeks. I think there's a difference in culpability here. You destroyed my reputation. No, Renee, you destroyed your reputation. I just made sure people knew about it. She was staying at Evan's condo, playing house with her boyfriend. But apparently the honeymoon phase was wearing off. According to Oscar, who heard it from the other bouncers, Evan was getting tired of having a live-in girlfriend who came with drama and viral videos. He's not who I thought he was, she admitted during another phone call. This one late at night when she was clearly drunk. Really? The guy who sleeps with married women turned out to be disappointing? I'm shocked. He's selfish, Lucas. Everything has to be about him. And he's angry about the video, says it's bad for his business. His business of being a club promoter? He has other ventures. Import stuff, like his family. Import stuff, right. I'd done some digging into Evan's other ventures and found some interesting connections to shell companies and offshore accounts. Nothing illegal that I could prove, but definitely shady. Why are you calling me, Renee? Because I made a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. And I want to come home. You don't have a home here anymore. Lucas, please. I know I hurt you. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We can start over. No, we can't. Why are you being so stubborn? So cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. You showed me who you really are, Renee. You showed me what you're capable of when things get boring or difficult. Why would I want that person back in my life? She hung up on me, but she called back the next night, and the night after that. Each time she was a little more desperate, a little more willing to admit what she'd lost. But I wasn't interested in her regret. I was interested in justice. See, while Renee was discovering that her boyfriend was a selfish asshole, I had been busy. I'd been using my IT skills to dig into Evan's business dealings, his financial records, his entire digital life. And what I'd found was very interesting. Evan Locke wasn't just a club promoter. He was running a sophisticated money laundering operation through his family's import business, using the clubs as fronts to move cash. He was also dealing drugs, not street-level stuff, but high-end party drugs for his wealthy clientele. And he was doing it all while living on a visa that should have expired 2 years ago. I'd compiled everything into a neat digital package: financial records, text messages, photos, transaction histories, immigration documents. Everything a prosecutor would need to build a case or an immigration officer would need to start deportation proceedings. But I didn't send it to the authorities. Not yet. Instead, I sent it to Evan. The message was simple. I know what you've been doing. We need to talk. He called me within an hour. What do you want? He demanded. I want to have a conversation, face to face. About what? About your business. About my wife. About the fact that you're about to lose everything. There was a long pause. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your email. Another pause. I heard him typing, probably opening the files I'd sent as a preview. Holy shit, he whispered. Meet me at Murphy's Bar tomorrow night at 8. Come alone. And if I don't? Then I send everything to the FBI, the IRS, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Your choice. He was there at 8, looking like he'd aged 5 years and 5 days. Gone was the cocky club promoter, replaced by a scared man who'd finally realized he wasn't untouchable. What do you want? He asked, sliding into the booth across from me. I want you to understand something, I said. When you decided to sleep with my wife, you didn't just hurt me. You declared war on me, and I don't lose wars. Look, man, I'm sorry about the whole thing with Renee. It got out of hand, but she came on to me, not the other way around. I don't care who came on to whom. I care that you thought you could destroy my life without consequences. What consequences? You got divorced. Shit happens. I slid a tablet across the table, showing him bank records from his offshore accounts. These consequences. His face went white. How did you... I'm very good at my job, Evan, and my job involves finding information that people think is hidden. You can't use that. It's illegal. Actually, most of it came from public records and social media. You'd be amazed what people post online when they think nobody's paying attention. The rest came from sources that, while not strictly legal, would be very difficult to trace back to me. He stared at the screen, scrolling through evidence of crimes that could put him in prison for decades. What do you want? He asked again. I want you to disappear. What? I want you to leave town, leave the state, go back to Connecticut, or better yet, leave the country entirely. I want you to break up with my wife, close your businesses, and vanish from my life. I can't just, yes you can. In fact, you're going to. Because if you don't, I'm going to destroy you so completely that you'll wish you'd never been born. He tried to bluster, to negotiate, to find some angle that would let him keep his life intact. But I had him dead to rights, and we both knew it. You have 1 week, I told him. 1 week to wrap up your affairs and get out of town. If you're still here next Friday, I start making phone calls. And if I leave, then I keep your secrets. For now. For now. As long as you stay away from me, my ex-wife, and this city, your secrets are safe. But if you ever come back, if you ever contact Renee again, if you ever so much as drive through town on your way somewhere else, I'll bury you. He left Murphy's looking like a broken man, and 3 days later Renee called me, sobbing. He's gone, she said. He just packed up and left. Didn't even say goodbye. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You did something, didn't you? You made him leave. I have no idea what you're talking about. Lucas, what did you do? I protected myself. The same thing you should have done before you decided to cheat on your husband. She was homeless now. Her boyfriend gone, her job hanging by a thread, her reputation in ruins. She was staying with Nina, sleeping on a couch, trying to figure out how to rebuild a life she'd destroyed for 6 weeks of excitement. And I was home, in the house we'd shared, finally at peace. The divorce papers came a month later. I signed them without reading them, shipped them back to her lawyer, and moved on with my life. 6 months later, I heard through Oscar that Renee had moved to Boston, trying to start over in a city where nobody knew about her viral humiliation. She'd found a job at a smaller marketing firm, taken a pay cut, and was living in a studio apartment that cost more than our mortgage had. Evan, meanwhile, had indeed disappeared. His clubs had closed, his condo had been sold, and according to immigration records I probably shouldn't have had access to, he'd left the country entirely. I never found out if he was deported or if he left voluntarily. I didn't care. What mattered was that he was gone. Renee was gone, and I was free to build a new life without liars, cheaters, and people who thought they could use me. It took me 8 years to learn that some people aren't worth trusting. It took me 8 weeks to make sure they understood the consequences of betraying that trust, and it took me exactly as long as I wanted it to take to move on and be happy again. Some people called it revenge. I called it justice. Either way, it felt pretty damn good. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching. Do you are watching? 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 Do you are watching?